Hello and welcome to the November edition of What's Up Stratford. Joining me and starting the show is Aaron Martin, the General Manager of the Stratford and District Chamber of Commerce. Aaron, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Peter.
You're the new General Manager of the Chamber. Tell us what motivated you to take this role.
Yeah, so I come from a background in agriculture. I live just south of Steubenville, and this opportunity came up, and I saw it as a great way to serve our local community and to bring my background in agriculture forward into this role, as I think that's something that's quite evident in this region. We have an amazing cultural industry, we have an amazing manufacturing industry, we have an amazing agricultural industry, and I'd love to see more of those woven together. And so I think that's where some of my specialties can kind of come in and help that. So.
In your
Um,
previous role in London, what was it for specific to business?
yeah, so I used to work for the Western Fair District, and then there was the Grove Project, which I looked over. And it was around an $18 million project. It was an agri-food incubator and accelerator, food processors. So put that in plain English. The incubator portion was, think of like an Airbnb of commercial kitchen spaces, where you'd have a person that had their grandmother's sauce, and everyone goes, I want to buy that. It's a fantastic product, but they don't have the financial or regulatory literacy to get to that next stage. And when they come up to either of those, they go, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know what to do. And we've lost that entrepreneur because of that. So we would show them the different organizations that are out there to help them scale them up, get them the information they need, build that revenue track record till they get to that point where they have the confidence and the backing that they can go to the next step, whether that be going out and getting their own bricks and mortar place, or there's the accelerator portion, which is kind of like a factory section where you'd have a dedicated space and you could build up to get the certain certifications you needed, get in a place like Loblaws, or if you wanted to go across provincial borders or down in the United States or anything along those lines. We also worked with tech companies, but basically just helping enable these businesses to get on their feet, know that the resources are out there and kind of build them up. So kind of segued nice into this current role as well.
Perfect. Well, let's segue into the next question about the initiatives you've got going on at the Chamber.
Absolutely. So yeah, we have a lot of different things going on. We obviously have our traditional business after fives, which I think most people that know about the chamber know about those. A great kind of network and go into other businesses, see what they're doing, everything along those lines. Um, we also are connecting this month with the Stratford Fighting Irish. So they have a charity game going on. So love to see everyone out there and doing everything along those lines. Things that I'd like to build up in the future. There's a lot of grant money out there from both federal and provincial governments. Those are our tax dollars, and I'd love to see them stay within our community. So I'm really working on hopefully getting in touch with a couple different grant writers so that certain businesses that might not have the time or the know-how can access those funds through them or through the chamber itself. So that's one project that I'm looking to hopefully execute in the coming months.
Now, this is one of the, I would say, the longest running chambers in the province. What are you doing to, if you will, attract new members, and what do they look like?
Yeah, so I'm relatively young for those of you that can see me. Um, so I think having that fresh blood and new eyes can kind of open up things and kind of make it so that people don't have the traditional vibe that some chambers can have, where it's a stuffy old club. I don't think it's that way at all. We are quite vibrant here, especially when you look at our industries and everything along those ways. Um, for encouraging people to join the membership. Something that I also want to work with is places like Invest Stratford, a lot of these different nonprofits, the business center here as well, and working with the summer program so that when we have these new companies coming in, they can see that there's a business network here and understand the value of that and how we can build them up and go to that next stage with them.
So, if people are interested in joining the chamber, what would you do to encourage them to do that?
Yeah, so literally come in, talk with me. I love talking. I love talking business. I love giving information that'll help other people. Even if people aren't a full member, I still want to talk with them. I want to engage with them. I want to see their business succeed because ultimately, the more businesses that succeed here, the better it is for our community. So I really think that's important, and I think that's a really, really great way to serve my local community.
That's awesome. Aaron, warm welcome to Stratford. I know you're already running at the chamber. Thanks very much for what you're doing to the business community.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Coming up next, we're going to talk to the conductor of the Stratford Symphony Orchestra. welcome back via Zoom to our November show of What's Up Stratford. And joining me is Bill Rowson from the Stratford Symphony Orchestra. Bill, thanks for joining me.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Power of Zoom, you're either in British Columbia or you're in Parry Sound or you're in Stratford. So you're everywhere. And today we've got you in the Power of Zoom in your car. Hey, Bill, what attracted you to Stratford originally?
Well, I had gone to see theater in Stratford, and it's a very charming town, and it's a very culture and arts forward town. I love the audiences there. I love the coffee shops, the restaurants. I've never not enjoyed my time in Stratford.
November 16th, tell us about your upcoming performance.
So we are featuring one of the great double bass players of the world, Joel Corrington. He's going to play the great double bass concerto, the Kusevitsky concerto, with us. Joel Corrington was, for years, the principal bass player of the Toronto Symphony. Then he became the principal bass player of the London Symphony in the UK, and also the National Arts Centre Orchestra here in Canada. He's just a legend in the bass community, and I'm really looking forward to featuring him. The artistry that he brings is second to none. But also on that program, the orchestra is going to play one of the big great staples of the symphonic repertoire, and that is Dvorak's New World Symphony, the symphony he wrote in America in the late 19th century. And it has with it just a stunning slow movement that has one of the most famous melodies ever written for the solo English horn. And the first and the last movements are just this vivid, energetic, expansive portrayal of an old European compositional master's view of the New World. And we haven't played it in a long time, and I really am looking forward to getting all the players in the room and rehearsing it and getting it all put together.
What do you attract such powerhouses to Stratford?
Well, so I'll tell you, and this is something that only happens in Stratford. How we got Joel Corrington to come down is we had a bass player move to Stratford. His name's Dan Armstrong. He played for years in the Chicago Symphony, one of the top 10 orchestras of the world. And he and his wife, Judith, they're lovely, and they retired, and they decided they wanted to retire to Stratford. And Dan got a bit, wanted to keep playing a bit. So, of course, I said, come on over. Chicago Symphony bass player in our little regional orchestra. That sounds terrific. And he is terrific. And he immediately got on with our principal bass player, Luc Machot. And it turns out they both know Joel Corrington. So through those channels, we reached out. And to my pleasant surprise, Joel's like, I'd love to. Let's do it. Stratford, no problem. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
As a conductor, tell me one of the biggest highlights you've ever had as a conductor in your history.
So I've had a couple of ways, a couple of lenses you could put on this. I've often written my own music and had a chance to perform it and be there in front of the orchestra. I will say, actually, though, that's particularly rehearsing your own music. It's a fine wire to balance on, I had a real highlight last September. We did the Beethoven Fifth Symphony at the beginning of our season this year. And there are moments in a performance where everything gels, and the sound is there, and the worries that you've had in rehearsal and the sort of waves you've practiced surfing and getting over and landing, and they all came into place. And I thought the SSO just soared. It was marvelous. It was marvelous. And those kinds of moments, the more you have them, the more it sustains you, and because it is, of course, music I've loved for decades, right? And to stand on a podium and hear it played like that right in front of you, it's an experience I wish I could share with everyone, but it's something I can enjoy for myself. Yeah.
Well, that's great, Bill. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in a black tie with tails on November the 16th in Stratford. Thanks very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Coming up next is Al Wakelin, new author in Stratford. Welcome back to our November edition, and joining me is Al Wakelin, author of Unforgiven Trespasses. Al, thanks for joining me.
Very welcome, Peter. It's my pleasure, and thanks for inviting me.
What inspired you to write a fiction book?
It's, I guess, I've always had a love of writing. I've done poetry and short stories, and I guess COVID was timely. I started this actual project back in the fall of 2019, but it wasn't until the dark days of September 2020, in the throes of the COVID pandemic, that it just drew me in, and actually was very therapeutic.
That's great. Al, I will tell you, it's the first fiction book that I've ever read. I read it cover to cover. I thought it was excellent. So tell us about how your previous background as an RCMP officer, you also worked in for a international company in their corporate security. How does it tie into your story?
Well, I'm influenced by the concept you should write what you know. And I've been very fortunate. I've had a very interesting career in life in policing and in the intelligence world and in the security management world as well. So yeah, I drew upon certain aspects of that to create this novel.
And the novel includes both Perth County and Huron County. So how do you actually develop the story? Because it is a bit graphic, let's be frank. So how did you just develop the story from the beginning to where you're going to finish it off?
Well, there's the therapeutic part. I know I suffer post-traumatic stress syndrome. And one of the things to help you with that is journaling. And I'm not the diary sort of guy. Businessmen like yourself, Peter, certainly keep a certain diary of everyday business events, but I've never been that sort of person. So the novel was a good way to go, and I chose fiction because it allows me to have a voice, so I can be a little bit preachy, and without having the constraints of nonfiction or certain legal aspects of nonfiction, because you have to have your facts really, really straight and be very careful what you say. And I'm not saying there isn't certain regulatory around fiction as well, but certainly it gives you a little bit more poetic license. And so I guess some of those dark things in my life, some of the demons, good memories too in policing, but there are demons as well. And it lets me address some of those demons. And that's what I did in this book.
Now, you've also brought your own home into the book. So there is a bit of nonfiction with the fiction. So how did you wrestle with that? Because I think there's 5 characters that are real characters as well. So how did you blend all of that?
I love reality. So while I wasn't going to write a nonfiction book, I do like the feel of something. This could really happen. I mean, for instance, a fellow that and his wife running a bed and breakfast in Stratford, and he just happens to be a former police officer, intelligence officer, and senior manager of security for a corporation, being that person. So it's well, that sounds like it couldn't be real. In fact, it is real. That's what we do. We run our little B&B in Stratford and at the cottage in Caledonia. And part of my motivation for the book, there's several motivations, but the concept of using Stratford was influenced by Louise Penny, who writes the Gamache series. She's written, I think she must be up to book 17 by now, but she created a place called Three Pines. I don't have that literary ability or imagination, but I know Stratford. I was gone for maybe 30 years, but I grew up here, always visited here, and of course we've lived here for the past decade. And so it's easy to write about, and I thought it was a way of marketing our city, B&Bs, the theater, the parks, and so that's what I did.
So when you're finished, you now have it published and you have a paper copy in your hand. Tell me about how you felt.
Well, and you've seen it, Peter. It's a great book, and the Richard Bain is the local publisher that published it. His Amanda Nolte was the designer. It looks really good. It feels good. I had it professionally edited. Kristen Hahn, who was identified to me by Bob Newlands that runs Fanfare Books, where the book is for sale, as well as the festival stores, and even here at the cottage in Caledonia. But it's a real good feeling. It's a satisfying feeling. And as you say, there's some kind of graphic pieces to it. But I did that deliberately because I was a first responder. And a first responder sees those things. I think for someone that suffers post-traumatic stress syndrome, I think it's important for the reader to have some of that flavor too.
Well, thank you. Congratulations on just writing such a phenomenal book.
Well, thank you, Peter. And I hope people enjoy crime mysteries will pick it up and enjoy the walk through Stratford and up to Bayfield and Goderich. And of course, it ends in Los Angeles, which is makes it a little bit more of an exciting ending.
We'll call that the Tri-Cities. Coming up next is Breen Bentley. Welcome back to our November edition of What's Up Stratford. Joining me next is Breen Bentley. Breen, thanks so much for joining me.
I'm glad to be here with you.
Well, thank you. Breen, you have at least 4 decades of experience in hospitality, probably longer if we date back to Alibaba and the Old English Parlor. How did those early days help you be so successful in business?
I think I worked with a bunch of strong people that gave good leadership skills, and they were hungry to get ahead, and they'd made me very hungry to get ahead when I saw them maybe buy a car, maybe go on a trip, maybe buy a house. So I energized myself by kind of saying, I like to be like those guys. They were hard workers, and then you have to love food, and you had to love money and alcohol and people, I think, and a challenge. And just to be a bit hungry to get ahead. So I worked out with a few of the strong people I worked with way back in my teenage days. I should never have been a restaurant guy. It just happened as a young kid by accident. I think it was an accident.
Well, good accident. You won the Chamber of Commerce Business Leader of the Year. How did that feel?
I think it felt sensationally great regarding my family. It's nice to leave a little bit of a story behind, or a little bit of some great memories of Dad did pretty good at that darn restaurant business, and he hung in there for 40 years. So you want to leave a really good impression on your kids that working hard and being aggressive and moving ahead is good for the family. So I was proud for my family.
And so you should be. So it's Brooklyn, Tanner, and Breen Jr. are now running the business.
Three kids, and the little miracle is they all work at the same place. We all work at that place. So I don't know if anybody could pull that off in Canada. I was hoping one, but we all ended up doing it.
That's amazing. So how has the Stratford Festival helped your business?
Yeah, if the story goes pretty good. That restaurant I have would not be in St. Thomas or Brantford or Chatham or we'll say Woodstock. It was built for more of a higher end roadhouse, higher end pub, higher end lounge, and really specializing in giving real food, real soup, real bread, and real what I call hands-on, trying to create some reactions with people. You want the place to look beautiful, feel good. You want them to take care of their taste buds. But that place without the Festival Theater in Stratford wouldn't be there. It's too big. It's too hard to run. In those other cities I mentioned, it wouldn't have lasted. Stratford, it suits, but I was lucky because I built it more to be for a local place, but I knew I could get the extra business from the theater, which is very beneficial.
Yes. And we seem to be living in a culture of franchises. If you could give some advice to people that want to open their own restaurant, what would it be?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think Stratford's unique in its own way with Pazel's and Mercer and Foster's and a lot of what I call homegrown family businesses. But the world, unfortunately, banks don't want to talk to a family restaurant guy. We're like opening up a gas station. They don't want to go near us because they don't have a very good overall success rate. So the banks, when you go and say I'm from we'll say Subway company, or I'm come from Tim Hortons, I want to open up a Popeye's chicken. The banks don't mind hearing that. But when you go into the bank now and you say, I'm Breen Bentley, and I'd like to open up a restaurant in Toronto, You're not high in the bank's list when it comes to being a successful industry. The restaurant business has one of the biggest turnovers I think in the country. It's a hard game, and you're right, Peter. I think what we're going to see in the future is just a majority of franchises everywhere.
Well,
Independent.
independence, as you're saying, your recipe, unintended, of success is phenomenal. So tell us about the accommodation side. How does that help marry in with the food and drink side?
Yeah, the accommodation part of the food and beverage is very hard work. It's 7 days a week, and it's a lot of staff, a lot of headaches. The rooms are really a comfortable way to make a little extra cash flow, because they're basically, they don't take much management. You do the cleanup and you supervise the rooms, but the accommodations, and we kind of want to make sure whoever stays upstairs loves to drink downstairs and loves to eat downstairs. So sometimes our customers are more catered to being more of a Bentley friendly kind of person, or a
Friends of
fan
the
that,
Bentleys.
yeah, but the accommodations are great. Like, I would love to own a big hotel, because you don't have to worry so much about New Year's Eve and Christmas and all that. The hotel, they just come and they go. If you don't have like a big restaurant part of it, just like a big hotel. But the accommodation thing was a lucky catch too. Those 12 rooms, they've been very beneficial to me.
Well, it's said the harder you work, the luckier you get. So your hard work has paid off, and congratulations on the award. And also big congratulations, especially your 3 children taking over the business. Breen, thanks very much for joining me today.
Okay, thank you very much. Cheers.
Coming up next is Nora Stevens. Welcome back to the November edition of What's Up Stratford. Joining me next is Nora Stevens. Nora, thanks very much for joining me.
No problem. I'm glad to be here.
Well, you've got exciting stuff, but let's back up on a couple of things. I think you were on stage in a professional company here for now. Tell us about that experience.
It was a really great experience, and it was a lot of fun to be a part of something like that. And I learned a lot during that performance. And yeah, it was a really great time, and I was so happy to be a part of it.
Awesome. And then a couple months ago in September, which attracts literally thousands of people, is the Dragon Boat Festival. Tell us about your experience there.
It was really cool to just be in that environment and getting to, but I was so honored to get to perform. It was a great day, and I met a lot of cool people. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
What's it like to perform outside, like the sound changes and all of that? So how does that work for you?
It's definitely a different experience than being inside. My very first show that I did was outside, and I learned a lot just from being in that environment. But it's really cool to be around people, like you're kind of together, and I don't know, I really like singing outside. It's super fun.
Awesome. You really have had quite a streak this year, because people dream to perform with this individual, Ron Sexsmith. How was that to be performing on stage with numerous actors, professional actors, on the beautiful Tom Patterson stage?
That was an unbelievable night, and I was so honored to be asked to play with him. And I just kept telling myself to be in the moment, because it's a once in a lifetime opportunity that I got to do that. And he's been a great mentor in my journey of being a singer-songwriter. And so, yeah, it was a really awesome experience.
Okay, well, tell us what are you working on your songs and your music?
My overall dream is to write an album right now, and to produce it and all that stuff. And yeah, I've been writing since I was 11, and it's my favorite thing to do. So yeah, that's kind of my biggest passion.
So do you prefer performing, or do you prefer writing?
I think I would prefer performing, but I love the process of writing a song and finally finishing it and getting to share it with a whole bunch of people, and that's my favorite part.
So what musical, I guess, theme or genre are you performing in, and who's had the greatest influence in that?
I think I kind of gradually go to more pop and folk kind of in that kind of idea. And I've had a lot of inspirational people in my life, even just close friends that are really amazing musicians, have had a really big impact on my writing and on advice too, just in that kind of work environment.
So how many different musical instruments do you play?
I play guitar, I play piano, I play ukulele. But yeah, guitar is definitely my favorite instrument that I do play.
Ukulele, I find that it's just too small for me.
Yeah.
What's it like to be in front of a whole bunch of people? How nauseous do you get? Like, how terrifying is that when you're about to perform?
I'm always really nervous before, but as soon as I get on stage, I'm not nervous at all. I love it so much that it doesn't feel nerve-wracking. But definitely when I started performing, I was nervous a lot more. But yeah, it's just I get so much energy from being on stage, doing anything on stage. So yeah.
So what's coming up for you in terms of music and concerts? So if people want to catch you in the next month or two.
I'm playing at the Livery Yard on December 7th. I do a lot of stuff at school, just kind of performing in coffee houses and stuff like that. But yeah, that's kind of the stuff coming up.
And the incredible thing is, you're just a teenager. And I say that because what you've accomplished so far has been miraculous. What grade are you in?
I'm in grade 10, so I just turned 15 this last month. So yeah, it's
I
been.
think you have a great career ahead of you. Okay, last quick question. Yeah, would you prefer to be on stage musically, or would you prefer to be on stage in a musical?
Oh, I love them both, and definitely I think music, like singing music, um, rather than a musical, they're both like so much fun. But I think singing music, it's really personal to me, so I feel like it's a way to tell people how I feel, and I really like that part of it.
Well, thank you, Nora. Thank you very much for joining me today. Congratulations on your success and continued success. I see you being an incredible star in this community and abroad. So best wishes.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
That's it for our show of What's Up Stratford in our November edition via Zoom. Thanks for watching and make it a great day.